Naomi heard the phone vibrate before Elijah realized she was awake. It was just one vibration, soft, brief, but it split the room open like thunder. Elijah reached for the phone too quickly, too carefully. Naomi turned slowly in bed, her heart already pounding, though she didn't yet know why. "Who's that?" she asked. Elijah froze, just for a second, but Naomi noticed. Church group," he said, forcing a laugh. "Probably nothing." Nothing. That word echoed painfully in her chest as he turned away, shielding the screen from her view. 12 years of marriage had taught Naomi many things. One of them was this: nothing that needs hiding is nothing. She sat up, pulling the covers around her like armor. "Elijah," she said quietly, "look at me." He didn't. Instead, he stood, slipped the phone into his pocket, and walked toward the bathroom. That was when fear settled in her bones, not loud, not dramatic, just cold and sure. Because in that moment, Naomi realized something far more terrifying than an argument was unfolding. Her marriage wasn't being attacked loudly, it was being undone quietly. And silence, she knew, was where the enemy did his best work. Naomi didn't follow Elijah to the bathroom. She stayed seated on the bed, listening to the sound of the shower turning on too quickly, as if water could wash away whatever had just happened. Her heart thudded against her ribs. "You're overreacting," she told herself, but instinct whispered otherwise. 12 years of marriage had tuned her to Elijah's rhythms. She knew his lies, not because he was a liar, but because he was terrible at hiding when something troubled him. And tonight, something was wrong. When Elijah finally returned, towel around his waist, phone no longer in sight, Naomi was standing by the window. "You didn't answer me," she said quietly. He paused. "About what?" "About who messaged you." He exhaled slowly. "Naomi, can we not do this tonight?" That sentence, "can we not do this?" had ended more conversations than she could count. "Doing this," she said, turning to face him, "is the only way we survive." He rubbed his face. "You're tired, I'm tired. Let's sleep." But sleep didn't come, not for either of them. The next morning, Naomi woke before Elijah. She lay there watching him breathe, memories flooding her mind, laughter in their early years, shared prayers, nights when faith felt simple. She didn't want to become suspicious, but suspicion had already found her. When Elijah left for work, Naomi sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. Then she prayed. "God," she whispered, "if something is wrong, show me, and if nothing is wrong, heal my mind." Her phone buzzed, a message from her sister. "Are you okay? You sounded off yesterday." Naomi typed back, "I think my marriage is under attack." Elijah wasn't cheating, at least that's what he told himself. He sat in his office staring at the message thread on his phone, long paragraphs, late-night prayers, voice notes layered with vulnerability. "Ruth, church counselor. I've been praying for you. God showed me something about your weariness." Weariness, that word felt accurate. Marriage had grown heavy. Naomi had changed, or maybe he had. Talking to Ruth felt easy, safe, spiritual. It felt justified. "I'm not doing anything wrong," he reasoned. "We're just talking." But deep down, he knew the truth he refused to name. He was sharing pieces of his heart that no longer belonged to him alone. Sunday came. Church, the place that used to feel like refuge, now felt like exposure. Naomi sat beside Elijah, hands folded, singing worship songs with a tight throat. She noticed how he avoided eye contact with someone across the sanctuary, a woman, her stomach twisted. After service, Naomi watched them speak briefly, too intentionally casual. When they got home, Naomi didn't shout, she didn't accuse. She asked one question: "Is there something you need to tell me?" Elijah stared at the floor. Silence answered first, and silence, Naomi would later realize, is often confession in disguise. "I haven't cheated," Elijah said finally. Naomi nodded slowly. "That wasn't my question." He swallowed. "There's someone I talked to from church." Her chest tightened. "About what?" "About life, faith, struggles." "And why her?" Naomi asked. Elijah hesitated. That hesitation landed like betrayal. "Because she listens," he said quietly. "I do," she whispered, "or at least I thought I did." That night, Naomi knelt by the bed alone. Her prayers were messy, angry, honest. "God, I did everything right. I stayed, I forgave, I submitted, I prayed. Why is this happening?" No thunder answered, no voice. Only a quiet understanding settled in her spirit. This is a war, but not against flesh. The enemy hadn't attacked their marriage with adultery. He'd used emotional distance, unspoken resentment, and unchecked access. Subtle weapons, deadly ones. Naomi called her mentor the next day, an older woman named Grace, who had survived her own marriage fire. After listening quietly, Grace said, "This won't be healed by pretending it's small." Naomi's voice shook. "What if it's already too late?" Grace replied firmly, "Then God will still be God." Meanwhile, Elijah sat in his car outside church late one evening, phone in hand. Another message from Ruth, another opportunity to escape responsibility. He closed his eyes. For the first time, conviction pierced through comfort. "You are standing at the edge," the thought came clearly. "Step back or fall." Elijah deleted the conversation. Then he wept. Naomi wasn't looking for proof. That was the lie she told herself as she wiped down the kitchen counter, Elijah's tablet resting nearby. It lit up suddenly, an incoming message preview flashing across the screen. "Ruth, I miss our late-night prayers. I hope Naomi is okay." Naomi froze. Her breath caught so sharply it felt like pain. Late-night prayers. She didn't touch the tablet at first. Her hands trembled as though it were hot to the touch. When she finally picked it up, guilt and dread wrestled inside. The thread opened easily, too easily. Messages poured down the screen, weeks of vulnerability, spiritual language wrapped around emotional intimacy. Elijah's fears, his disappointments, his loneliness, things he hadn't shared with her. Naomi sat down slowly, the room tilting. This wasn't adultery in the way movies portrayed it. This was worse. This was replacement. When Elijah walked in that evening, Naomi was sitting at the dining table. The tablet lay between them. He knew immediately. "You read them," he said quietly. She looked up at him, eyes burning but dry. "You prayed with another woman about things you wouldn't even discuss with your wife." "I didn't touch her," he defensively said. Naomi stood. "You touched her with words, with access, with trust." Elijah opened his mouth to argue, then stopped, because for the first time he saw what he had actually done. "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered. "It always goes this far," Naomi replied. They met with church leadership 2 days later. Naomi hoped for wisdom. She got minimization. "Well," one elder said carefully, "at least there was no physical sin." Naomi's hands clenched. "And Ruth is a respected counselor," another added. "We don't want to damage her reputation over misunderstandings." Misunderstandings. Naomi felt invisible. Elijah sat silently, shame flooding him, not just for his actions, but for his cowardice. Outside the church office, Naomi stopped walking. "I can't stay here," she said. "What?" Elijah asked. "In a place that protects image more than truth?" Naomi packed a bag that night, not dramatically, not angrily, just carefully. Elijah stood in the doorway, watching 12 years of life fold into a suitcase. "I need space," Naomi said, "not because I don't love you, but because I can't heal here." Elijah's voice broke. "Is this the end?" She shook her head slowly. "That depends on whether you choose repentance or regret." The door closed softly behind her, and Elijah collapsed to the floor. True repentance hurt more than guilt ever had. Elijah confessed, not selectively, not strategically, but fully, to leadership, to Ruth, to God. The fallout was immediate. Ruth was removed from counseling duties. Whispers spread. Some blamed Naomi, others pitied Elijah. No one escaped untouched. Elijah fasted alone in the house that echoed with absence. God, he prayed, I dismantled my marriage one conversation at a time. If you can rebuild it, I'll obey whatever it costs. At Grace's house, Naomi lay awake night after night, replaying memories, questioning everything. Was I boring? Was I too serious? Did I miss the signs? One night, despair wrapped around her so tightly she could barely breathe. She slid to the floor and cried out, God, I don't know who I am without this marriage. And in the stillness, a truth settled deep. You were mine before he was his. Naomi wept, not from loss, but from relief. Kelsey, yes, the same Kelsey who once stood firm for Cameron in another story of faith, showed up for Elijah. You don't get to rush restoration, Kelsey said bluntly. You broke trust slowly. You'll rebuild it slower. Elijah nodded. I'll wait. Good, Kelsey replied, because waiting is where pride dies. 3 months later, during Sunday service, Elijah stood up unexpectedly. Hands shaking, heart pounding. I sinned against my wife, not with my body, but with my heart. Gasps filled the room. I take full responsibility, and whether my marriage is restored or not, I will walk in truth. Ruth watched online, tears streaming. For the first time, she saw humility, not performance. Weeks later, Naomi agreed to meet Elijah. Public place, clear boundaries. He didn't beg, he didn't defend, he listened. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said quietly. I'm asking you to watch me change. She nodded slowly. That was enough, for now.
3 months after the separation, Naomi began to breathe again. Not fully, not freely, but enough to notice the world beyond survival. That was when Daniel entered her life. He was a colleague at work, new, thoughtful, attentive in a way that didn't demand anything. He noticed when Naomi was quiet. He asked questions and waited for answers. He never spoke badly about Elijah. In fact, he barely spoke of him at all. That scared her more than open pursuit would have. One afternoon, as they walked to the parking lot, Daniel said gently, You don't have to be strong all the time. Naomi's throat tightened. Strength had been her armor for so long that she'd forgotten what it felt like to lay it down. That night, she knelt beside her bed and whispered, God, please don't let me become what wounded me. The temptation wasn't sexual, it was emotional refuge, and she knew better now. Chapter 19. Elijah loses what he built his identity on. Consequences don't stop once repentance begins. Elijah lost his leadership position at church. Then came the quiet distancing, friends who no longer called, invitations that stopped coming. The hardest blow came when his job placed him on indefinite leave due to reputational concerns. He stared at the email long after reading it. So this is who I am now? He murmured. That night, alone in the house that still smelled faintly like Naomi's shampoo, Elijah broke down completely. I don't know how to rebuild. I don't even know who I am without the titles. And for the first time, his prayer wasn't about restoration. It was surrender. Chapter 20. The physical manifestation of the war. Stress does not stay spiritual forever. One evening, Elijah collapsed in the kitchen, chest tight, vision blurring. The ambulance lights painted the walls red and blue as neighbors watched in silence. At the hospital, the doctor shook his head. Severe anxiety, panic attack. Your body is screaming what your mouth hasn't been allowed to say. Naomi received the call from Grace. She sat on the edge of the bed, phone pressed to her ear, torn between self-protection and covenant memory. She went. When Elijah saw her in the hospital room, tears slid down his face. "I didn't think you'd come." "I didn't think I wouldn't," she replied quietly. They prayed together for the first time in months. It was awkward, broken, honest, and God met them there. Chapter 21. The conversation that nearly ended everything. Weeks later, during counseling, the question finally surfaced. "What if I forgive you?" Naomi asked, voice steady but eyes afraid, "and I still can't trust you?" Elijah didn't rush to answer. "Then I'll live transparent for as long as it takes, even if that's forever." She swallowed hard. "And if I forgive you and I never feel the same?" Elijah nodded slowly. "Then we build something new, or we bless each other and let go in peace." That honesty nearly broke her, because love that doesn't demand ownership is terrifying and holy. Chapter 22. Grace is not passive. Forgiveness came slowly, not in a dramatic prayer, not in a tearful embrace. It came in small obediences. A shared meal, a difficult conversation, a boundary honored, a truth spoken early instead of late. Naomi learned that forgiveness wasn't pretending she wasn't hurt, it was choosing not to weaponize her pain. Elijah learned that repentance wasn't self-punishment, it was consistent humility. Chapter 23. The night Naomi chose covenant again. One night, alone in prayer, Naomi felt the weight lift, not the memory, but the bitterness. She whispered, "I choose covenant." Not because Elijah deserved it, but because God had kept covenant with her. The next day, she met Elijah at the park. "I'm not healed, but I'm willing." He didn't touch her. He just nodded, reverent, like someone standing on holy ground. Chapter 24. The restoration that didn't look like a movie. They moved back in slowly, separate rooms at first, shared prayers before shared space. The marriage that emerged was quieter, but deeper. No illusions, no shortcuts, just two people fiercely committed to truth. Church was no longer central, God was. Chapter 25. The vows they almost broke. On their 13th anniversary, Elijah stood in their living room, hands trembling. "I don't want to renew vows publicly. I want to speak them where they were nearly lost." Naomi nodded. He took her hands. "I choose you," he said, "not because it's easy, but because it's sacred." She replied softly, "I choose you, not because you're perfect, but because grace taught me how." They wept, not because the pain was gone, but because love survived it.